If you drop into a second-tier city in China, one of those places most Americans couldn't find on a map, you might genuinely do a double take. Skyscrapers popping up like mushrooms after a rainstorm. High-speed rail lines crisscrossing the map like someone went wild with a Sharpie. And government investment promotion offices still lit up at midnight as if the workday never officially ends. And the mayor? He doesn't feel like a traditional politician. He feels like a relentlessly caffeinated CEO, always chasing the next deal, pushing the next project, building the next thing. Roads, factories, industrial parks. Sometimes they'll even jump into venture investing themselves. Yes, a city government acting like a VC. Now cut to the United States. Even in places like New York or Silicon Valley, a basic infrastructure upgrade can turn into a 10-year saga. Public hearings, environmental reviews, lawsuits, more hearings, more lawsuits. It's like the project has to run a marathon while everyone gets a free chance to trip it. Political scientist Francis Fukuyama has a name for this: Vetocracy. In a Vetocracy, it's incredibly expensive to get something done, and strangely cheap to stop something from happening. So why does a Chinese mayor hustle like a CEO, while an American local official often ends up looking more like a careful property manager, constantly balancing interest groups and trying not to get sued? That's what we're digging into today. Not just who's more efficient, but two completely different survival logics, two different incentive machines. To understand what's driving China's mayors, you need one core idea: the political tournament. Think of China's massive bureaucracy like a giant multinational corporation. Beijing is headquarters. Provincial leaders and city mayors are like regional managers. HQ controls promotions and appointments. But here's the problem. If you don't have elections constantly pressuring managers from below, how do you get them to grind as hard as possible? You build a KPI system. Economic performance becomes the scoreboard. GDP growth, fiscal revenue, visible development metrics. And that becomes the logic of promotion. This is where the accountability direction flips. In the US, a mayor is mostly accountable downward, to local voters. In China, a mayor is largely accountable upward, to their superiors. And within a province, it's basically a zero-sum tournament. Promotion slots are scarce. So if the neighboring city lands a Tesla factory and you don't, that's not just, oh no, we lost an investment. That's you falling behind in the tournament. And once you're behind, you might not catch up. That pressure, this move or be moved aside dynamic, forces mayors to obsess over KPIs like CEOs, sometimes at, let's say, aggressive cost. There's another accelerant too: time. Local top officials often have average tenures of around 3 years. 3 years. So they need a results sheet fast. That helps explain stories like Wanda Plaza promising completion in 18 months. Not because construction physics suddenly changed, but because the timeline neatly fits an official's term. Finish it before they rotate out, and the project counts as their achievement. America's incentive structure is almost the mirror image. There's a theory called the home voter hypothesis. The idea that local politics in the US revolves around protecting home values. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. For an American mayor, building roads and bringing in factories isn't automatically a win. Sometimes it's political poison. Because if a big project brings noise, traffic, and congestion, and home prices dip, local residents will punish the mayor at the next election. So the behavior pattern becomes cautious, compliance-focused, risk-avoiding. More like a community property manager than an expansion-hungry CEO. So yes, the tournament creates motive in China. But motive alone doesn't build high-speed rail. You also need fuel. That fuel is what people call land finance. Here's a power Chinese mayors have that many American counterparts can only dream about. In China, urban land is state-owned, and local governments effectively control the primary land market. So a mayor can acquire rural land at low cost, then, through administrative power, convert it into industrial or commercial land. Then comes the financial engineering. A city can set up a local government financing vehicle, an LGFV, inject the land into it as an asset, and use that land as collateral to borrow massive amounts from banks. That borrowed money funds roads, bridges, subway lines, big infrastructure. Then infrastructure improves. Land prices rise. The city sells some commercial land, pays down the loans, and kicks off the next round of investment. So building a road isn't only public service. It's also a strategy to make the city's land assets appreciate, like improving a property before you refinance it. Or, more bluntly, it's operating the city the way a company operates a balance sheet. In this model, land functions like equity. Land finance becomes leverage. And urbanization happens at a speed that took many Western countries a century or more to achieve. Meanwhile, American mayors are wearing what you might call fiscal handcuffs. Local revenue relies heavily on property taxes. If a city wants to borrow for major infrastructure, it often needs voter approval. Bond measures, referendums, tax increases. If taxpayers say no, then even a mayor with a grand vision can't just do it. And looming over all of this is a very American reminder: Detroit. Detroit's bankruptcy in 2013 is a permanent warning label for local officials. If you borrow too much, your city can literally go broke. And there is no automatic HQ bailout coming from Washington. Now let's make this real with two stories. Story 1, Hefei, the city government that acted like a legendary VC. In 2019, Chinese EV startup NIO was in a life-or-death cash crunch. Private capital was backing away. And then the Hefei city government stepped in, hard, with a 7 billion yuan strategic investment. To a Western audience, that sounds insane. A government betting taxpayer-linked money on a struggling company? But inside China's logic, it's very CEO-like. If it fits the national strategy, like new energy vehicles, and if it produces results, GDP, jobs, an entire supply chain, then risk becomes acceptable, almost expected. And after that investment, NIO survived, and Hefei gained a huge EV industry cluster, an ecosystem worth hundreds of billions in value. Story 2, Amazon HQ2, the New York faceplant. Around the same time, Amazon announced plans for a second headquarters in New York, promising 25,000 high-paying jobs. The governor and mayor were thrilled. They offered around $3 billion in incentives. Then the backlash hit. Media, unions, local politicians, community groups. Why are we handing gifts to the world's richest man? This will drive housing prices through the roof. And in America's veto-heavy system, a small group that feels harmed can use hearings, lawsuits, or public pressure campaigns to stall or block the deal. Eventually, Amazon pulled out, and the mayor couldn't force it through. Because in that system, he's one player in a multi-sided battle, not the final referee. Even the media ecosystems reinforce these differences. In China, China speed often gets framed as a kind of political aesthetic. Officials portrayed as professional, industry-savvy, working tirelessly for national strategy. That narrative makes state intervention feel like competent expertise, and it normalizes trade-offs. Procedural flaws, individual rights compromises, those are treated as tolerable, sometimes even necessary, for collective growth. In the US, Local media tends to play watchdog. Suspicion is the default setting. Instead of celebrating a new bridge opened, coverage often zooms in on what's the corruption angle, or what culture is this redevelopment destroying? That conflict-driven style dramatically raises decision costs. Every subsidy, every parcel of land, every contract gets placed under a microscope. It protects procedural justice, yes, but it also makes large-scale action feel like wading through wet cement. Slow, exhausting, and sometimes impossible, even when the end result is clearly inefficient. And that inefficiency gets defended as the price of democracy. So, zoom out. Chinese mayors look like CEOs because they operate inside a system that treats the nation like a super corporation. They have strong mobilization power, and they carry brutal growth KPIs. American mayors look like community property managers because they're employed by homeowner voters, and their top job is to protect rules, procedures, and existing asset values. And both models come with real strengths and real pain. China's model excels at speed and mobilization. It can build the world's largest high-speed rail network and respond quickly to big national challenges. But the costs are heavy. High debt, misallocated resources, and long-term neglect of procedural justice. Under the CEO model, local governments accumulated enormous off-balance sheet debt through LGFVs. And when real estate cools and land stops appreciating, the whole operate the city logic runs into a brutal sustainability test. America's model excels at rule of law and correction. It uses complex procedures to reduce abuse of public power and protect fairness. But the price is collective action paralysis. In a world that's getting more competitive by the year, that healthy slowness can start morphing into a competitive disadvantage. Cutting unnecessary veto points and recovering the kind of state capacity America had when it built things like the Hoover Dam might be one of the defining questions for US competitiveness in the 21st century. So let me throw it to you. In an era obsessed with speed, what matters more, efficient outcomes or fair procedures? And what's the line you personally refuse to cross? Drop your take in the comments.